So I'm going to give you a little bit of my own background and then talk to you a little bit about the Centre for Innovation, and particularly talk about what we've seen, I guess, over the last few months since we announced the Centre as being what we see as the 3 ingredients for creating a Centre for Innovation. So number 1 is having the right ambition. That means a combination of lots of different things. It's getting the right talent, which is absolutely key. And it's also being in the right space. So that means physical space and also the broader ecosystem overall. So my own personal background, I studied electronic engineering. And then I did a postgrad diploma in business studies, and then I studied a professional accountancy qualification. So I guess my academic background is very much a mixture of technology and business, and this role is very much the intersection of technology and business. I worked with a number of startups after that, so they were typically international companies either locating in Ireland for the first time or actually creating new areas in Ireland. So I worked in a number of startups. So I worked for a CD manufacturing company, a French company where I was the second employee in Ireland. I worked in Epicor, a software company where we were setting up operations in Ireland. So I guess I got a little bit of that startup bug. I like to work in a startup that was part of a big international organisation. And then 17 years ago, Anderson Consulting, which is the previous version of Accenture, was setting up its first international hub in Ireland. So I continued to have that startup bug, but I really wanted to go and work for a big name organisation, and Anderson Consulting at the time had a magnificent reputation for training. So I really went into interview and I talked about I want a company that's going to give me the job I'm interviewing for and the next job. And I guess 17 years later I've had at least 17 jobs, often simultaneously, but I've had an opportunity to do loads of different things over that period of time. And I'll talk clearly a little bit about that in a few minutes. And the last couple of years, I guess, I've much more involved in the ecosystem in Ireland. So I've been involved in the ICT Skills Plan and the recent National Skills Strategy, and now I'm involved in Innovation 2020. So I guess this role, getting an opportunity to work as the Director of the Centre for Innovation is a huge piece. I was actually the person who was asked to lead the project to investigate whether or not this was feasible, what we could do in Ireland and how we could do it. So landed the role overall, which is great. So let me talk to the first thing, the 3 things I mentioned. So the ambition, the talent, and the space. So the first thing is around the ambition. So what we are is a multidisciplinary research and incubation hub, creating solutions to big issues more broadly. For us, so what we're seeing is digital technology is changing the world at a pace we've never seen before. And Accenture is very well positioned. We're a very large company. We're $30+ billion. We have 400,000 people globally. And we're in every single industry. So really our clients are the envy of every single industry. We also have a very broad business. So from strategy, from consulting, digital technology and operations. So we're sort of in every industry. Actually, we have a very broad business overall. But what we're seeing is industry lines are blurring. So things like traditionally what would have been a supermarket was a pure retail outlet. You went there and you bought your shopping. But now it's also a bank. And now it's also a mobile phone operator. So actually different industries are starting to blur and industries are working together. And that's a really interesting challenge for us. Also we see is you've got big issues you're trying to solve. You actually have to bring a lot of things to the table. So often a lot of industries are changing. Their business models are fundamentally changing. The type of technology available is fundamentally changing. So we're often seeing that you've got to bring multiple different technology capabilities and business capabilities together. And that really for us in Accenture is where we see the sweet spot and what we can do. So the Centre is set up in a multidisciplinary, as I mentioned earlier, teams. So when I say multidisciplinary, we talk about the 3 Ds. So there's domain expertise, there's design thinking, and there's developers. And domain expertise I can go through in a couple of minutes. That would certainly help with the presentation of, but actually show you the types of different areas we're talking about. So domain expertise are really where we've got content experts who are very strong academic background and are researching the future of something. So researching the future, for example, of life sciences, or researching the future of artificial intelligence. And then our view is that that's not enough on its own, so we've put them in a way sitting side by side with design thinkers. And for us, design thinking is about thinking about things from an end user perspective. So all the digital technology is changing the end user, the end patient, the end citizen's perspective, and actually bringing entirely new opportunities to the table. And for us, as we work with our clients, we think if we just think about our clients and the problems they see today and help them solve those, we're completely missing a trick. So if we think all the way through what's changing with the end citizen, we can actually help our clients to disrupt their industries rather than being disrupted. And the third piece is around development. So we also want to speed up our innovation cycle. We want to really move from talking to making. And what we see is if we can work with our clients through discussion, maybe over 3 weeks or even many months together, and we work on prototype development so that they can see things firsthand, they can test them with customers, we think will really speed up the innovation cycle. So that for us, I guess, is the three disciplines we talk about. We also talk about living, breathing innovation hub. So we're a big company, and big companies probably move a little bit slower than some of the broader ecosystem does. So we know we've got to partner with the ecosystem to really create innovation. So that could be co-creation with our clients, that could be working with academia, that could be working with other research centres. It could also be working with startups, because often working with startups you're seeing what is the next wave of technology and where is that coming from. So we think all of those things are really making up our overall ambition. So what's interesting is we are effectively an entirely new startup, but within a very large organisation with a huge amount of skills, clearly, and content that we can tap into. So I mentioned we've got loads of different domains together. So we have sort of focus on artificial intelligence, and that's a big piece of what we're doing. There's a piece on Internet of Things, a specific focus on advanced analytics. And actually the advanced analytics piece is the combination of analytics skills and industry skills together, which we think is a really interesting combination. Focus on digital marketing. So if you think about it, we've got multiple different things actually coming together, and we really think that that's where we're going to create, my ambition or my mandate really from our organisation is to create combinatorial innovation. So that's really taking disparate things, putting them together in a new way to create something entirely different. So maybe to give you an example, one of the projects we're working on is around the future of healthcare, and particularly around life sciences. So think about biomedical devices companies, thinking about pharma companies. And that industry is entirely changing. So a lot of that industry historically was more about creating products and having the best supply chain and having the best brand and the best marketing. But actually it's changing quite a bit to outcome orientated. So hospitals and doctors and patients are asking for an outcome, not necessarily the pill or the device that's the input to that. So that is a big shift in business models, and we're doing a project on this right now. So think about that, that brings in Accenture strategy and consulting skills together. But actually to get to outcomes, it's also about gathering data to help get to the right outcomes and influence the patient to be more healthy, etc. So whether that's about devices and gathering biomedical data, whether that's about analytics, bringing all that data together, or whether that's about artificial intelligence, really almost creating a digital coach to coach the person to ensure they're taking their medication on time, and learning how they respond and coming up with a better way to communicate with them next time. So you can see that those are multiple things, but when you put them together in a very different way, it creates an entirely new business model that people can work through. So that's, I guess, about the ambition. So it's a combination of how we're putting things together and actually the broadness of our brief overall. So the second thing is around...
Your computer's working.
Oh, fantastic. I need to put in my password though.
You're doing a good job with that slide. It's very good, yeah.
But you see, there's nothing much on the slides. The more pictures you have, the slower it is for slides. I wonder which I'm going to give up. I think it's just scrolling. Do you want to help me out? If it doesn't move forward, I think I'll just keep going anyway. Yeah, so the second thing really for me is around talent. And talent, for me, there's probably three things we think about. So number one is, I guess, people will see Accenture as a very large organisation, very well established. But we're not sort of typical Accenture, we are a startup. So actually we really need to find people who will thrive in that startup environment. And it is very different. I think also that diverse talent is very important, you know, multiple skill sets, but actually there's lots of different types of diversity, and I'll talk about that in a second. And the other thing is really having that ambition to bring things together and to really create something maybe bigger than it would have started overall. So for me, the startup piece, and we're seeing this only 5 months since we originally announced, and I probably distracted about slides, but actually what I should have said and I didn't say in the beginning is what we've announced is a €25 million investment and 200 roles this year. So we're actively hiring, as you can probably see from my t-shirt and some of the team here. So very actively hiring, so that getting the right talent is a key piece for us overall. So that thriving in a startup, so you know, a lot of you will have worked in startups and you know it's a little bit chaotic. The speed at which things happen is extremely fast. You have to be very comfortable with ambiguity. And the interesting juxtaposition is we're part of a large organisation, but we're a startup at the same time. So also we can't just go ahead and do things. We've actually got to figure out if somebody else already done it before and harvest the power of the bigger brand globally. So that's a really interesting piece about getting the right people who can thrive in that environment. Secondly, I think the diversity thing is really interesting. So whether that means the multidisciplinary, and I mentioned earlier about the domain expertise, and you can see there's lots of different types of it. I mentioned design thinking earlier about thinking about things from an end user perspective, but I think the other thing about this is design thinking for us is really a combination of creativity and commercial outcomes. So we need people to be creative, but actually focused on what's the commercial outcome overall. So again, that's quite a different way of thinking. And then the prototype developers. So if you think about somebody with a PhD in artificial intelligence, somebody who's maybe got a design thinking background, and somebody who's doing agile development, these are entirely different people with entirely different backgrounds and skill sets. So that's a key part of that diversity for us. Other parts of diversity are clearly things like gender diversity. And what's interesting, even with just 5 months since we announced, we actually have about a quarter of the people applying are female applicants. And that's really just not good enough. We really want to make sure that we have a much more diverse background. So we're doing things like we're sponsoring Girl Geeks, and we go into places where technology, literate girls are hanging out and actually going and telling our story to them. Because what we really want to do is pull them in and be part of the recruitment process. We'll get the right people will come out the other end, but we certainly want to make sure we're not getting a non-diverse background because we're not bringing the right people to the table. And also cultural diversity and international piece. Ireland is great because we can attract people from other locations to come and work in Ireland, and we're already hiring people from multiple different locations. Now, actually, we have our first international recruitment event this weekend in Zagreb, where we have a team going there. They pre-screen candidates, and we're going to meet with them directly. So lots of different ways in which we're thinking about that diversity, because we think that's key to bringing things to the table. And the final thing, I guess, for me in terms of talent is that ambition piece, as I mentioned. So I guess by the time someone gets to me in interview, they've been assessed for their technical skills and the various different things. But by the time to get to me, what I'm really checking about is that ambition. Because as you can see there, we're hiring people, they need to have a specific background, specific skills. We're hiring them for the role. But maybe like when I started in Accenture, I was hired for a role, but actually I've done many different things over time. So looking for people with that personal ambition to do something different and contribute in a bigger way. And I think about if we get all those right people together, that collective ambition could be amazing. So maybe the final thing is in terms of the space. So we have, we're now in temporary location, but we will move in October to our new building, which is in 7 Hanover Quay, which is in Silicon Docks. So Silicon Docks was a very big decision for us. We think we need to be in the heart of where that technology ecosystem is. And we have taken a very long lease on a very large building. So you might, if you added up the maths, you see our ambition is bigger than the numbers we've already announced. And that space is really interesting. So in a way, it's our first innovation project. So by the time we go live, we will have hired 200 people in that centre, and we'll be launching a centre. And we needed to speak to people as being an innovation showcase overall. So it's really our first innovation project. We've got a multidisciplinary team working on it, from our Fjord design studio, clearly to an architect, our own team, our emerging tech team, our CIO team. And also we're going to prototype. We're not going to move into the entire building in day one. We're actually almost going to grow into it over time. Because I think we'll learn more in a month in the new space than we will with a year's desk research. What's interesting is it has to facilitate multiple different things. So it almost has to be a hospital on a Monday, and a retail outlet on a Tuesday, and a bank on a Wednesday. So we've got to create this space that is actually going to be different things at different times. And it's also going to have to change with us over time. I can't say what we're going to be doing there in 2 or 3 years' time. So it's almost got to be a chameleon and change with us as we grow and we develop over the next few years. The other thing is we will work in projects in everything we do. And to get to this combinatorial, we're going to have pieces from multiple teams always working together. So it's also got to be a space that can form and reform, and you can see one of the diagrams on the right hand side. So project teams can form out of a certain size for a duration, then unform and then reform as a new project team. And projects go through different modes. They're in the brainstorming mode, they're in the heads down mode, they're in the research mode, they're in the prototyping mode. So actually a space has to work very differently over time. This is a really interesting thing to have to design, and you can see it's something that actually is getting us very excited and our new employees are involved in. But also the building needs to be a showcase for Accenture and our overall brand. We will bring clients in here and they will be part of the dialogue and part of workshops. But also we want it to be a hub for the ecosystem more broadly. So you can see we would have industry talks and almost industry and academia in and out of this building all the time going forward. So in closing, I guess, what I'd like to say is I've talked about broadly for us to create this Centre for Innovation. It's very much about getting the right ambition, which you can see is big, but it will grow over time, getting the right talent, and also getting the right space. And I think if we can get all those things right, I think we can be growing and developing for many years to come. We are actively recruiting, so clearly from the T-shirts and the team here, so we are at recruitment stand 56, if anybody wants to come and talk to us afterwards as well.
Thanks very much. In the interest of time, if you've any